I'll read the usual script. Good afternoon and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Melton Borough Council. Members are reminded that we will be using the audio-visual system this afternoon, and the meeting will also be streamlined live on YouTube. Members are asked to physically raise their hands in the usual way to indicate they wish to speak, and to use their microphones, that includes me, when speaking for the benefit of all present. Please switch mobile phones to silent. I will now provide a reminder of the evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist persons who require assistance. There is a legislation that allows the public to film, record or use social media at a council meeting. This must not be disruptive to the good order of the meeting, nor to include any filming or recording of the public seating area. Thank you. I'd like to record my thanks for Michelle for being here. She's breaking a holiday to be here, and to note that Ed is at hospital at the moment. It's a routine checkup, but I told him that he should honour that. Okay, so thanks all round. And now onto the agenda proper. Other apologies? We have none, I don't think. So that's okay. Minutes of the previous cabinet meeting. Is it your wish that these are a true record? Yes, can you show favour? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any interest impacting on any agenda items this evening that anybody wishes to declare? No items of interest. Now we move on to item number 4, which is the Scrutiny Committee report back, and I invite Councillor Mike Brown to address the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, you have the comments, or the summary of the comments from the Scrutiny Committee in front of you. I won't elaborate too much, but I think there are 1 or 2 issues within that are worth highlighting. I think first off, on this, talking about the CCTV project initially, just remind ourselves that that project was undertaken against the background of a system in Melton that was out of date, largely non-functioning. I've just lost my document, largely non-functioning and certainly not serving the interests of the town. So the aim was to replace it, and not only replace it, but secure improvements to what we had. And I think Scrutiny was satisfied that that had certainly been achieved. We were very impressed with the implementation, with the work of the staff, and also with the forward thinking that came out in our discussions there. If there was a criticism, which is highlighted here, and I know we talked about it in the meeting, the project clearly had objectives and it achieved those objectives, but the report could have set that out more clearly, because clearly as a public document it's important to highlight what we started off intending to achieve and be able to measure against that. And I think that point was taken by the officers during our discussion. We did touch on what the primary purpose of CCTV is. It can be an after the event or during the event way of spotting things going off that we want to react to, and certainly as is mentioned also in the comments, the police have already identified that it's proved of assistance to them on more than 1 occasion. They're very pleased with the way the system's working. And clearly that is part of what it's about, but it's also about trying to deter unwanted behaviour, unwanted activity within the town and elsewhere within the borough, which I'll also come on to. We did discuss that perhaps there could be some review of how it's signed, how it's the visual impact of CCTV, so people are aware that they're potentially under surveillance. And also, and the lead officer did say this was something that was under consideration but might not be immediate, whether there's some degree of voice output from CCTV could be considered. So if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, the voice will call out saying, watch what you're doing, or something to that effect. But certainly that technology is available, and providing it's within budget, I think it's something that may be looked at further down the road. So all round, we felt that both aspects, the deterrence as well as helping in the apprehension of people who've behaved inappropriately, were encompassed by it. The help point device we thought was very interesting, and certainly would be something that would help reassure people in the town if they felt they were in any way vulnerable or in need of assistance. The other point I think I'd like to highlight is the fact that there's clearly scope for looking at the deployment of CCTV or something of that sort, not just within the town centre. And that's clearly been the focus, and the new cameras, the fixed cameras, are in the town centre. But there are mobile cameras that can be deployed, and it's not the end of the story in terms of what's been achieved so far. And certainly the other parts of the borough in the rural areas will come within scope in due course. But clearly, that's work in progress, and we were pleased to hear the officers have already recognised that, and it's something that will be developed. And then finally, on that, we actually touched upon the possibility of drone technology. So not only do you get a voice coming out of the camera saying, watch what you're doing, you get a little buzz in the air above you saying that we're filming you from all angles. That's been slightly facetious, but I think we are looking at all possible technology that could enhance this system to the benefit of the borough. So all in all, as is summarised in the comments here, we felt that the project had achieved its objectives, and it is a live project as well, so it won't stand still. There's an awareness that we don't want to end up in another 10 years' time with a defunct system that's no longer fit for purpose. So it's a live system that will continue to be enhanced and developed over the coming months and years. And that really summarises the views of scrutiny on that.
I won't ask you to go on to the next part of it. If we just lead member and officer, is there any did you want to say anything else on the topic? Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, I'm pleased to see this report, and I thank Councillor Brown and the committee for their consideration of the CCTV project and their comments. I agree with those comments. I think you've paid a lot of attention, and I think what we have now is good news. It's good news all round. It's that the new system, the other one really wasn't functioning properly, but the new system is really good. It's already preventing crime, and I think it will, as it becomes more and more difficult and more well known, hopefully it will reduce antisocial behaviour around and help the police generally with their work. I think there's no doubt we need more of them, to my mind, because they really do reassure the public, that it makes people feel safe. So yeah, I thank you for what you've done at work. Thank you.
There are no specific recommendations. I'll make two comments of my own. One, of course, is that CCTV is not a mandatory service. It's something we choose to do. And in budgetary terms, that might be significant for the future, but it's certainly something we're not going to resile from. We will persist with it. Okay, so are we happy to note that? All those in favour? To note and thank the Scrutiny Committee for their report. So now we move on to the next part of the Scrutiny report.
Thanks, Chair. Before I actually comment on the health and wellbeing report, which I'll probably say less about for reasons that will be apparent, I just want to say what I said at the Scrutiny Committee, that whilst we recognise we have issues in the town, I think it's important to recognise Melton is not inherently an unsafe place to live, especially as we're on public record here tonight. But it's important that we have the facility to deal with those incidents that do occur. Right, I've managed to lose my place. Just bear with me a moment, Chair. Yeah, with the health and wellbeing report, I mean, again, our comments are all set out, and I don't want to repeat them in their entirety. But I think there are important considerations here that were focused on by the scrutiny committee. I mean, it's a very lengthy report. We recognise that as a council, our remit within the provision of health and wellbeing services is relatively limited. You know, we're not a primary healthcare provider, we're not a primary social care provider, but we do have an input in terms of some of our services feed in to the health and well-being of the community, whether it's through the availability of leisure services and exercise, etc., for people, whether it's through our housing service, where clearly we have some direct involvement in supporting people who are vulnerable and have health issues, and just generally as a council in terms of the leadership we give within the borough. And therefore it was important that as a partner we were part of the process of developing this health and wellbeing plan. There were really two themes, if you summarize in the comments that we've made. One was about those wider issues, the issues around the economy of the town, how that impacts on health and wellbeing, people with a range of challenges that have an impact, housing, which is mentioned here, issues around the food bank, for instance, all of which we have some degree of either direct or incidental input into. And the comments there were fairly self-explanatory. I think the other theme within our comments, though, was about the state of health services in Melton. And it would come as no surprise to say that more than one member of the committee touched upon the issues around the GP surgery. Not necessarily about the second one, although we all would like one, of course, but about the fact that there is a general sense that the current GP surgery is not serving the interests of the town as well as it might. And there was certainly a feeling that whilst the report is clearly looking to the future and changes in health, it was important that if there are problems with the current provision, that should be examined as part of that process. And I think that point was made very clearly to the representative of the health service who was present. There's also a very strong feeling within the committee that the current facilities in the town are underused, particularly in respect of the hospital. I think to many of the people in Melbourne, it's a bit of a mystery. It's exactly what the hospital provides, but there is a hospital there. It does actually provide services, and there are facilities there that are possibly underused. So part of what we were saying in our feedback was that should be explored to see whether it could be more fully utilised, and even beyond that, whether there was the potential for establishing some sort of healthcare hub using those current facilities. Because that building is actually surprisingly large. I don't know, whether other members here have been into the hospital. I've certainly had occasion to visit there on a couple of occasions, and there should be scope, we feel, for enhancing the services within that facility. There was a bit of a mixed view, I think, within the committee about the issue of urgent care, which is a bit of it's a bit of a thorny issue, if we're honest. I think there was a very strongly held view coming from some members that residents of Melton and the borough as a whole were faced with some distance to travel when seeking urgent care, and why couldn't we have more local services? But set against that is the fact that there is the potential for misdirecting people. If you can't have the full range of care and treatment facilities, as you inevitably could not in a hospital such as Melton Hospital, is it actually best serving the community to direct people there with the potential they have to be onwardly directed somewhere else? So it's quite a difficult one, but I think there was a strong feeling that more could be offered within the borough than is currently the case, and as we have existing facilities, they should be used for that purpose. Second to last, just to talk about, I think it was quite interesting, of course, to remember and it may come as no surprise that this was a particular view from a particular part of the borough, that some parts of this borough are served by other health services other than Leicestershire. And it is important, therefore, this cross-border cooperation and working. And I think we were reassured to some extent from the representative from the Health Authority who told us that that was in fact the case, but it perhaps needs to be strengthened and explored further. And then lastly, and it got to the heart of what this particular plan is about, which is about change in the future. We did quite strongly express the view that if they want to achieve change in the way healthcare is delivered, and there's a logic to that, there's a logic to the broad plan that's being put forward, you've got to actually give people confidence in what they have at the moment, which brings us back to the issues about Latham House and other lack of access to health services in the town. And I think I use the analogy that if you've got a football team of 11 fairly poor players, getting rid of 11 poor players and bringing in 11 equally poor players doesn't inspire confidence. And therefore, you've got to put right what's wrong at the moment to get people on board for change in the future. And there's a lot of negativity in Melton about the state of the health service. I'm sure that exists elsewhere as well. We know about the issues within the NHS. But we wanted to send the message that it's not enough simply to have a new plan for the future. You've got to actually be prepared to look at what's wrong now and to take steps to fix that. So I think that sort of summarises, where we were as a committee. It's a big report, and we probably, although we talked about it for a long while, I'm sure we'll be coming back to it as it develops over the coming period. But that was our first range of thoughts.
Thanks, Mike. The Cabinet have had the benefit of citing the document, obviously, and discussing it as a group. And I believe that some of your comments and our comments have been well received and have been included within a revised version. So I want to put on record our thanks to our staff for participating in input to this document and the whole process. And while it's not perfect by any manner or means, it does provide a starting point to give effect to all those changes and taking into account our observations. And on that basis, I'm proposing from the chair that we we thank Scrutiny for its comments and that we actually note the revised version and endorse it as a basis for improvement in the future, taking into account all of our concerns. Now, Pat, you want to...
If I may, just a couple of comments. I think it's a huge amount of work, a huge lot of information, and lots of common sense, and quite a bit of wishful thinking. And some of those things, of course, are completely beyond our control. Now, we cannot affect them. It's a shame about Latham House because it constantly crops up as a problem. But I do know that last week a resident went to the doctor and thought he had a very minor matter, and the doctor suspected a DVD, the deep vein thrombosis, and he should go immediately to casualty. So his wife drove him to Leicester. That was in the evening. Now, he was seen by sort of some medical people, but he didn't see a doctor till 8 o'clock the next morning. That was a serious thing. He could have died with that sort of condition. And we have got real problems. But at least at that time, Latham House did the right thing. He had no problem getting an appointment, and it worked for him. But just a lady the other day was complaining that she went to hospital. She collapsed and somebody took her into hospital. And again, this was last week, and she was 7 hours waiting to be seen. You see, it's at the moment, we've got a broken system. And again, it's nothing that this council can sort of put right. Hopefully things will settle down. But there are other problems in that document. it says, it points out, of course, that locally and Melton, the area, is more digitally excluded than other local areas. And that, we've known that for many, many years. And so I think we need to do something about it, you know, for our local people. When I came in today, I could see two people trying to use our computers, you know, out in the reception area. And I guessed that they were trying to sort out universal credit. And when I explained who I was and asked if I could speak to them, and they were happy to. And they were saying they really, really struggle. One does have a phone, but he's now the DWP have arranged for him to have some training opposite Sainsbury's, he was telling me. So it's something in Cllr. So he's getting some training there. Yeah. And I said, well, would you like a laptop? And he said, well, he couldn't afford the internet. I said, well, I think you can do it for less than £20 a month. He said it costs £17.99. So obviously he had researched it, but he said, I can't afford that. The other man, he's going to get a free laptop and free instruction, you know, again, paid for by the DWP. So I think that is really, really good too. Really positive. I was so pleased to hear it. But we've still got to do more. You know, we know that more and more stuff is only available online, you know, and lots of the health stuff now, you've got to do it online. And I know here, going back to the universal credit, there was a member of staff popping in and popping out, trying to help this man, you know, but it was a struggle, you know, I don't know how they cope. I really don't know. I do understand that anybody who, when you're first applying for universal credit, it's something like 17 pages of questions or something. God alone knows how they manage, you know, but so I think that, you know, as a council, I'm sure there must be funding out there and work in the past. Age UK have done quite a bit. You know, they used to have a bus, you know, to help people, you know, with computers. And I've been around there when they've been helping people with phones. And excuse me, is it a week or two back, I was round Gloucester House at a friendship group on the Friday. And we've used them in the past to get information about older people. And I know there were 34 people there. And I asked how many are on the internet or who weren't on the internet, and there were 8. That's a huge percentage. And I don't know how skilled those who are on the internet, I don't know how skilled they are, you know, at finding information. And I just don't know. But there's still an awful lot of people who are not on the internet. But when I asked if they all had phones, they all had phones. So I thought that was a really, really good thing, because from a security point of view, you know, but we mustn't forget those people. And it's not just older people.
The broad point you're making is that within the compass of this document, it references the paucity of digital resources, and therefore it affects their ability to access the NHS. Now, are there any other points?
Yes, and it's not just the just older people. It's we know from the pandemic that lots of young people were excluded. I don't know. I'm constantly quoting this woman who was on television when the children were at home, and she was working from home, and she showed her mobile phone. And she and her 3 school children, she was trying to work via her phone, and her 3 school children were trying to do their schoolwork via the phone. So what I'm saying is, it's recognised in this document, you know, that there is a problem, and it's not just good enough to recognise it. We need to sort of try and do something about it. Thank you.
Specific points.
Thank you. I just a couple of bits, if I may. So just firstly, returning to the comments from the scrutiny committee. Yeah, just to confirm that those comments have been taken on board and built into the next iteration of the plan. And having reviewed that, I can see that they've really been added in terms of that wider context, particularly that point about the cross-border, I know has come through really strongly in there. And I just wanted to comment also about the remit and reach of this plan. It is a plan to which we contribute, and we will contribute to the actions. It is not our plan. It requires partners to work together. And there will be key things that we can feed into and influence. And one of those may well be around supporting around digital access. And that is something that the council has plans for future projects and a focus on. So whilst it won't solve all of those things, it will make a contribution. And it's really helpful to see that referenced in the plan, because what it does is gives us a route to then do something about that in the context of access to health services. And then the final point I just make is that a clear next step is turning a document into a so what. So having an action plan that goes alongside it so that we can see that it starts to make a change and make a difference within our communities. And again, that requires a collaborative effort. And I know the scrutiny committee, we're keen for us to feedback in due course on that. But that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, it's come on now. Sorry. Just to comment, I noted the comments back from scrutiny and they're very thorough. One of the comments I just want to add to, which was that food banks that are a crisis offer don't provide fresh food. Now, whilst our storehouse provision in the town doesn't provide fresh food, there are a number of voluntary agencies across the town that do provide fresh food on a weekly basis, fruit and vegetables. And I think, as Michelle just rightly mentioned, as this plan comes out and we look at the contribution of all the partners we have in our town, that will perhaps provide some reassurance to scrutiny that whilst it's not provided by MBC, within the provision and network we have across our district, there are a number of agencies that do provide fresh food in addition to the core provision you get from storehouse.
The paper. Oh, sorry, Mike. Please do.
It's really just picking up on a couple of those points for May Chair. Just on the last one, I mean, it was specifically referring to storehouse. Interestingly, I saw a picture on Facebook from a friend in Leicester the other day with a picture of that local food bank, and it was nothing but fresh fruits and vegetables. So it's not unachievable to actually transform what happens in food banks, and I think that point is well made. And just generally on the fact that, you know, to say that it's beyond our control to determine you know, the future development of health and wellbeing services, you know, there's an element of truth in that, but we've seen already, we've had influence, and I think we need to continue to engage, at the very least, to have influence. One of the you know, the important things I think is to recognise the NHS comes into contact with lots of people who are normally sick. We come into contact with lots of people who are, on the whole, not so sick, and so our input comes from a slightly different perspective, and I think it's important to be able to do that and to have a voice at this table. So I think it's very valuable, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Mike. I've asked that we note the paper and generally endorse it, and look forward to future contact and input to the process and highlighting the issues that we've all been raising. So is that agreed? Can I ask a show of hands? Thank you very much. So thanks, Mike. I think that concludes your sojourn at the Cabinet. Are you leaving now? I'm only asking because I'm going to invite the other officers to come up to save them sitting. You're very welcome to stay in the public gallery. As a moving, I'll just tell you we're moving on to item number 5, and it's my name is attached to it incorrectly. I'm pleased to say. I think it's I think that's Pat's portfolio, isn't it? Yeah, I hope you've read the paper, Pat. But I'll ask Michelle to present it.
Thank you. So just by way of background and just to recap, really, a few meetings ago, the Cabinet considered some scrutiny committee feedback relating to homelessness. And Councillor Cumbers, one of the questions you asked at that meeting in particular was around our support for young people who might experience homelessness, and 16, 17-year-olds and care leavers in particular. And I know we provided some follow-up information, but I explained at the time there was some background work ongoing which related to making sure that we have effective and consistent ways of supporting young people who might experience homelessness, and to try to prevent them from reaching a point of crisis or homelessness. And that work had been going on for some time. So the paper in front of you this evening presents 2 protocols which we are asking for you to endorse this evening. One of those is setting out how we will support 16 and 17-year-olds. So if they present to us as homeless, or if they're experiencing breakdown of relationships at home, how we and our colleagues in children's services would support them to prevent the risk of that escalating to crisis point. And then the second protocol relates to care leavers, and that's showing how we will support care leavers up to the age of 25, again, to try and give them the best chance of them not experiencing homelessness, but then also finding housing solutions and the right support to help them to thrive. Clearly, I know that all of us would want to prevent people from experiencing homelessness. It's not nice. It has lasting consequences and impacts for people. And so our work to prevent that is important. I just wanted to draw your attention as a cabinet to a couple of bits, if I may. So the first is that as a district council, we have corporate parenting responsibilities. So this is not just a nice to have. It is not just something that enables us to really enhance what we do. It is a core part of what we must do to support young people. And it builds on things that we already do. So we already have some good practice as a council. We already have things built into our allocations policies, and we already have those relationships across the county. What we didn't have, though, is necessarily that consistency that is required. So it's really important that a young person that experiences homelessness in Melton receives the same level of support that they would get somewhere else, and vice versa. And what it also does is means that for a care leaver, they are not constrained by the district in which they are living. They can present to any local authority across Leicestershire to receive that same support that they require. But just building on some of the things that we already do for care leavers. So we offer a higher banding on our housing register, but we would always try to prevent them from becoming homeless in the first place. We also give extra concessions in terms of leisure. So we support them to access some of our leisure facilities and things at a reduced rate. We do, whilst it's not a requirement of us, we do enhance our offer as someone does move into accommodation. So provision of furniture and white goods and things to help people to set up and to get on their way. And we also have an exemption from council tax for care leavers up until the age of 25. So there are a number of things that we already do, and we want to just really build on that. We've had government involvement in shaping the protocols in front of you this evening. So there was an assessment carried out by a specialist youth homelessness advisor from DLUC, and that has really helped to strengthen the work. And really pleasingly, we've now been asked in Leicestershire to support colleagues in Oxfordshire that are on the same journey in strengthening their approach, which is positive. So I shall leave it there. Thank you, but obviously happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions?
In the paper, the only area I know it would have been explored, Michelle, is just some explanation or understanding around. I noted one of the comments was a young person might have no connection at all with Melton, but present in Melton, and we're going to accommodate them. And I just wonder, does the protocol explore why that choice has been made and what support that young person might require? Because there might be a really complex young individual that we have no knowledge of, that will come into our system, and it won't just be about housing. It might be about the bigger picture.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good point. What the protocol is seeking to do is to make sure that people, young people don't just bounce from organisation to organisation. So if a young person presents and needs that support, then the first thing that should happen is help them to be in a safe space and then explore those things. There are complexities with any homeless case, whether they're 16, 25, or, or a family of 4, there are always complexities, and it's our responsibility to really understand what's happened for that family, why they've experienced homelessness, what can we do to prevent that, what can we do to relieve that situation before we reach a place of full homelessness duty. So what the protocol is seeking to do is just to make sure that we don't have that. What young people have experienced in the past in some places is they've just been passed from county council to district council, and that's an experience across the country that this work seeks to just make sure it doesn't happen in Leicestershire. So I hope that reassures. There's always a lot more to every case, but that fundamentally is what it's looking to do.
Yeah, I think for myself, it's about you receiving the correct information from another authority. So if they were to move from another district and present as homeless, or that the information follows them, and the sharing of information around children leaving care and children with complex issues is often the delay from personal experience in my profession. So I think it's for your officers, it's as if this protocol and this joint working reinforces that shared information so we can provide best for them, then, you know, that's good progress.
Thanks. I can see what a huge amount of work has gone into this, and rightly so, because children, you know, young children with problems, and we know that an awful lot of people in prison started off in care and ended up in prison. So I'm really, really pleased. I've got a couple of questions, if I may. One of them, I could see going through the papers that I did see extended family mentioned once, but I think it's not right the way through. I think often when the children end up homeless or on the streets or whatever, usually because of family breakdown, and often family breakdown involves a step parent, you know, and extended family sometimes are the ones who can take care of that child and keep that child off the streets, and could perhaps even take the child into their homes, and that, so that could be uncles, but especially grandparents. Grandparents are very often they can have a really good relationship with grandchildren. They don't have the financial responsibility, but they have the love and the interest. So I really hope that that extended family is really explored, and that grandparents, because so often we see when something awful happens, you know, with somebody being killed or something, it turns out that the grandparents have been trying so hard, and they've been ignored by social services, you know, as not really mattering. You know, it's either the immediate family or it's into care or onto the streets or whatever. And that's one question. And my other question is, it does say there in the document that these young people should get independent help and advice. I presume that includes legal advice. Are they sort of not just told, but are they helped and guided to find that advice? Because often 16-year-olds wouldn't know where to go, you know, and they might just think, well, they won't bother, you know, so it might need something really active, and them told that it's important that they get that advice. So those are my two questions. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Pat. So the first point about extended family. So what the protocol won't do and wouldn't be appropriate to do is place an expectation on extended family. But you're absolutely right. There are occasions where that's the right solution, the right support available for a person. And with any homelessness case, we look at all of the options available to accommodate safely and appropriately, or to support appropriately as well. So on a case-by-case basis, absolutely, that would be explored. And then your point about are people advised in terms of legal rights and where to look and things, that the whole purpose of this is helping people to know what's available to them, to be able to understand that, to be able to understand the role, the rights and responsibilities that they would have, and to guide them again on a case-by-case basis. So it would depend on those needs, and no two cases are the same, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah,
Thank you.
But just overall, I think it's really so good that so much attention is being paid to this.
Pat, and can we extend our thanks to the report author, please? And speaking as a great grandparent, I have to say that my financial commitment seems to grow exponentially from year to year. Right. So I'll move the. We're asked to endorse two items at 2.1 and 2.2. So I'll move from the chair that we endorse them. Is that okay? What is your favourite? Yeah. I think Sharon's. You in favour? Yeah, good on you. Good, well done. Right. So last item, item 6. I'm the portfolio holder for this, I think, and I am. So this is a piece of good news insofar as we're getting some money from central government to do some very good work in support, and I'll refer you to page 2, paragraph 1.3. And I'll read it. The government is keen for councils to assist where possible in providing settled accommodation for Afghan households, particularly for those households who have worked alongside the UK government and risked their lives alongside our armed forces or have assisted UK efforts in Afghanistan. And I think for that reason and that reason on its own, it's worthwhile supporting this proposal. I'd like to thank the officers for all the work they put into it. I noticed that the document we've received has taken on board concerns that members of the cabinet, all of us, have expressed on some of the detail. So I'm grateful for that. I note in particular that the 3 homes that we will be able to buy at the lower end of market value, which is good, and that they will go into our housing stock permanently. So that's a win-win. And out of this particular package, we will get a home for a local resident as well. So it's an altogether good package. I'm not going to ask the officers to go over it again because they've done a lot of work already on it. I will move the recommendation from the chair that we delegate, we agree the policy at 2.1, we approve at 2.3, and that we delegate accordingly at 2.2, 2.4 and 2.5. I'll draw your attention to the fact that the portfolio holder will be involved in, am I right in saying that? The portfolio holder will be involved in signing off. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, so the portfolio holder would be involved in the purchase of properties that were made available through the scheme. Yeah.
So that's at 2.4, and that really satisfies one of our concerns. Yes, Sarah.
Sorry, Pip, I wasn't at the cabinet meeting, so I just want to say, having read the paper, I want to thank the officers for their tenacity in identifying the match funding that would enable us to take advantage of the government funding, because having read through, we did have to find some funding from within our own means. And in this exceptionally challenging environment, the fact that they've been able to do that so that we can proceed with the purchase, I think was a really good piece of work. And I just wanted to say that the debt of gratitude that we offer, we owe those Afghanistani families that supported us during that time. I just wanted to note, and that the additional homeless provision that we'll be able to offer in the town is going to be very much needed when we look at the current news in terms of the cost of living crisis and the pressure on even professional families to now find homes. Thank you.
So my apologies for forgetting that you were on holiday. You were there in spirit, and I thoroughly echo your comments about the efforts of the staff here to manage this financial package really well. Sharon.
My fingers, sorry. So we can just confirm that the 250,000 that was proposed to start off with, that we are going to look at the lower end of the housing that Margaret showed evidence of, the you know, that there was houses out there a lot less money than that. Will it come back to, if you can't find properties under the 200,000, will you come back to cabinet for us to agree to go back up on the budget?
Thank you. So what we've got in terms of this package is an overall funding envelope, which allows us access to a grant of up to £360,000 from government, and then a contribution from match funding from this council using a combination of those Section 106 monies and then some flexible housing funding from government. The commitment that's made within the paper is to ensure that we achieve best value, so that make sure that we are seeking properties at the value that is most advantageous for this council. So as you have asked us to look at lower cost properties to make that money go further. The balance that we have to strike is to make sure that when we bring those homes into use, they meet decent home standard, as is a requirement of any property within our housing stock, and that we can manage the refurbishment costs within there. So we will always look at that, balancing those requirements around refurbishment, etc. So the reason for the delegation to me, in consultation with the Director for Corporate Services and the portfolio holder, is to give assurance that there is that best value being sought, which balances all of that. So provided we operate within that budget envelope, there wouldn't be a requirement to come back to Cabinet, because we would be operating within the decision that had already been taken. I know you're very clear with us that you want us to explore best value when we have met informally about this, and that is the commitment set out in the public report.
Find that what's being proposed is not acceptable, I'm being consulted, so there might be there would be an opportunity there to call a halt, but I'm not anticipating that. I think we've got a framework there to do what we want to do. If you follow me, I think we can keep it within the bounds that we want.
Yeah. Suitable housing out there for less than that budget that was set. That was my concern. Sorry. Well, where it was set out for price value per property, I just think.
Well, it can do it for less. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Should we put it that way? The important thing is to get 3 dwellings and not to go above the budget. Yeah. So I think that sort of should give us enough comfort.
Yeah, I just think, you know, with what's out there on the market, my concern was that we get value for definitely value for money.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now, Mark.
Yes, thank you. We've had a lot of discussion on this before it's actually come to Cabinet, and I'm quite happy to see this final paper now. There were some concerns about the amount of money and what the sort of properties we were aiming at, but best value is the thrust of this document, and I'm quite happy the way it is, because if we do buy existing homes, that means we can house the people who need the housing a lot quicker than waiting for other avenues to open up. So yes, I'm very happy with this, and it has been a bit of a long journey, but we're there now, and thank you very much, officers, for altering the direction. Thank you.
I moved the recommendations. Can I ask, is there any in favour, please? Thank you very much. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you, officers. I'm sorry you weren't able to say anything, but it was important that you were here.